Hey, Sally, I'm so excited to have you here today. It has been such a pleasure to know you, literally. And I know we're going to dive into that shortly, which is kind of funny. For anyone watching, Sally, you're a visionary in building companies in general, but have been really spending a lot of time in your career in marketing and also then the like distribution build of pleasure toys or sex tech, as I am like learning is the official industry term for it. So for our viewers, I know we've talked about all sorts of topics here around founding companies, investing in companies. And now, when we think about the spectrum of what matters to women, it's like money, technology, and I think, pleasure is an important part of it. So we'll be talking about all those things. If you are at work and don't want to talk about that right now, then save this episode for later, but we are going to be diving into all things startups, investing, and the world and industry of pleasure tech. So, Sally, I'm so glad to have you here today. If you could kick us off, where are you calling in from and what are you focused on these days?
Hello, I'm calling in from Los Angeles. I'm based in Santa Monica, and I am a founder of two companies. I run my own sex toy company called Higher Love, and I also run a company named ARIES Brands. And basically, I white label and develop, design, manage the logistics of pleasure products for other people. So because I was building my brand and I was building my skill set around how to actually launch a sex toy brand, and it is not easy. There are so many hurdles. There is a really big moat around the industry. I figured I wanted to help actually grow the industry as a whole. And I have such a skill set now that I now help brands and creators launch their own products.
How did you get into this world? So I know you're from Australia originally,
Yeah.
Tasmania, and just, sweet Sally, flying into Los Angeles, right here. How does she get into this world?
My dream and a cardigan. So it wasn't a natural progression, I will say that. And I don't think it's even a job that people think it may be aspirational. I remember when I first entered this industry, I was a little bit shy to talk about it and maybe even like a little bit ashamed because I thought, oh, I'm not in one of those credible industries like finance or tech or fashion even, where I can just talk about this and people understand it. It felt taboo. And that was only 4 years ago that I entered this space. And so my background was like in fashion marketing, and I came across a company that really wanted me to get one of their brands and put it through like the fashion marketing funnel. And it hadn't really been done in the industry before, treating a pleasure product brand as though it was a fashion lifestyle brand. So creating social media, creating campaigns around it, messaging, working with influencers, that was still fairly new in the space. And in my first year at that company, we won Marketing Campaign of the Year, which is really interesting because I think in fashion, you can work for 30 years on the best marketing campaigns and never get recognized or awarded. But this space is still quite new and changing rapidly. So there's a lot of room for innovation and creativity. And that's when I realized, oh, I'm actually good at this and I really enjoy it. And it has like more of a message to me than other things I'd been working on.
I love that. I feel like I totally resonate with what you're saying, right? And that's even with the disclaimer on this. It was like, sometimes this industry can be pegged as feeling like cheap and like not elevated. And one thing I loved so much about our conversations was how much you teach me even and our group about the space and the role of really connecting to this part of yourself and like empowering women in the space. And so, it's really, I would love for you to talk about it a little bit more of how you think about your role in the wealth space. And I think wealth has such a broad definition, not just money, but like how people feel about themselves, their inner confidence. And so maybe even if you could describe what inspired Higher Love and like really the thoughtfulness you put into helping women invest in themselves and their own pleasure and like discover what that looks like.
Yeah, that is a great question. I think for me, I was getting a little bit frustrated working in the industry because a lot of the products were designed by men, and like I love men, nothing against men, but they were designing products for women. And I just thought, like, no, if I had designed that product, I would have changed this, this, and this. And so I really wanted to create products that, like, me as a consumer would actually want and enjoy and not feel like it was sleazy or male gazy at all, because I didn't want a product that was all about satisfying like a male partner. I wanted women to feel like they could just enjoy it on their own, or they could sort of explore their body and explore what turns them on and make that more comfortable so they can then connect with a partner. Because I still have so many friends who are like, oh no, that's sleazy, or no, like I would never be caught dead with one of these. And I just wanted to sort of change that narrative, because it's not about like anything sleazy. It's about really connecting with your health, because mental health and physical health, there is so much rhetoric around that, and yet sexuality is such a core part of your humanity, and we do not discuss it. It's not comfortable. I think I'm very lucky to be in Los Angeles, where people do talk about it a little more, but I think like the majority of people are still nervous to discuss that. And I think if you do want to be a well-rounded human being, connecting with your body and your sensuality is really important. So I wanted a brand that was all about like the holistic experience. So mentally disconnecting, like one of our instructions is turn your phone off. Like you don't have to, but like we really want people to disconnect from the busyness of their world and really just turn inwards and feel connection with themselves, whether it's solo or with a partner.
What I love so much about the product you just launched was just the huge focus, and one, the beautiful design. Like the aesthetic is so stunning. It does feel really elevated, but it's also a lot about self-love. Like you have like the self-love stickers. You even include like a mirror, which is some women may never have even like looked at themselves or like know about their
Absolutely.
body. And
I wasn't sure if I should mention that on here. I know people are on LinkedIn right now, so I just want to be careful. But yeah, it is a big part. Like if you really want true connection and intimacy with a partner and you expect them to understand what you want, but you don't actually understand your own anatomy and respect it and love it, it can be very hard for a partner to read your mind as to what to do. So that's a big part. Like the first step, switching your phone off, and the second step is actually taking a look at your own body to understand your anatomy. It's like Charlotte in Sex and the City. Samantha was telling her to like take a mirror and look at herself, and Charlotte was like, what? I would never. And that was like 15 years ago. So we really need to be changing that.
I think we're seeing such a movement too, and it's relatively recent, but even just in like femtech, right, or as it's called, or women's health tech, like TIA, which is creating almost like medical centers specific to like women's biology. And I think it's as important in the health space to understand, as you mentioned, connecting to your humanity, your sexuality, and investing in yourself. What do you think has been the most exciting thing that you've learned that you would want others to know?
Yeah, I would say this is like the core part of why I created ARIES Brands. From a business perspective, is like it is actually a really ripe industry for financial gain. And especially if you're a woman marketing to women, I really wanted to enable other women to get into this space, because like, people have normalized talking about every different aspect of skincare. And before it was like sort of gate kept by dermatologists and the big brands. And what I wanted to do was to let people know it's actually not as hard as you think, but there is a system to it. And I know like in terms of just like opening the door to other women. That's basically what I wanted to do, is like, let's do this together. One woman and her small brand is not going to change the world. But if I can help like 5 other big creators or brands extend their product line to actually have pleasure products that women enjoy, that resonate with their existing audience, that's how we're going to progress the conversation. Is we're going to normalize things like tools that improve people's sex lives and remove the shame and stigma around it. And it is slowly happening.
Can we dive into that a little bit more for the people who are listening? Maybe we haven't touched enough detail of really what you're doing, the system that you've built, because yes, we're talking about pleasure products. Yes, we're talking about self-love and self-investment, but also like this is a really solid business that you've built, right? And a system, and you are a completely credible, brilliant founder and entrepreneur, no matter what the industry is. So I'd love to just touch on that a little bit about how you got started, what you learned about, like, even just, you've really bootstrapped this from the ground up. And now, the system that you have in place to help others kind of learn from that roadmap that you set for yourself that took, double, triple, 10x the time to figure out. Now you're basically, packaging that for people. Can you explain that story a little bit more?
Yeah, it's interesting because there were just a lot of males in the space, and I've found myself feeling very intimidated, even thinking about making meetings with certain brands or certain distributors, because I know they've got like a very male heavy team, and I just know how I come across. I seem like younger than I am. I'm 32, but I look like I'm like 25. And that is actually not really an advantage, like when you're running a business. And I'm very sweet, I do have like the tiger in me if I'm negotiating or whatever, but it's just not how I come across. And so I just wanted to make it not this male dominated industry full of like mafioso type people. I wanted to create this system. And so I originally started with my own brand, and I uncovered every element from product design, which is like 2D, like images for a concept, like a sketch from a client, turning that into a 3D render. And what does that process look like? And how long does that take? And then we get a 3D printed like sample made out of nylon, so we can actually look at it, examine it in person. And then we progress it through to the mold phase with sampling and production. And then we go through, we make our tweaks, and then we do mass production. And then along with that, it's all of the accessories, it's like packaging, a storage pouch. And all of these components are completely scattered. So I wanted to bring it together into like a funnel, into a system that made a lot of sense. So someone can come to me with their idea and I can actually make it a reality. And it is so frustrating when you first start this process, because you don't know who the good manufacturers are. And, for one of my clients, the hardest challenge was they wanted to do Bluetooth. So that's where I didn't have a lot of experience in that space, but I had to learn really fast because I thought it was such a cool concept. And so to make a sex tech product, to make a Bluetooth like phone connected product is a challenge. Most brands don't do it. There are so many established brands in the industry that wouldn't even touch it because they think the R&D for something like that is like $500,000. And they're not wrong. It'd be really easy to spend $500,000 on that. And I didn't have that money. Like you said, I was bootstrapping. So I had to get really scrappy and really granular and actually do this myself. So I had to figure out who the great Bluetooth manufacturers were, and could they even develop sex toys, because you don't want a sex toy developer who's trying to make their product Bluetooth enabled. That's a recipe for disaster. You want a Bluetooth specializing manufacturer who can also create silicone products. So that's something I learned. And then also I had to find a team, like a tech team, who could actually build an app that connected to this Bluetooth product. That wasn't going to cost an arm and a leg. I mean, I was getting quoted $300,000 just to create the first round, a prototype of an app. And I thought, no, like, we just need to know if this is going to work. First of all, I don't want to spend that money. And what if it doesn't work? So I really had to go deep in the industry, and I was on subreddits about how to hack these toys. And I think from there, we have built this incredible product. And my client Vibes only developed the app side of things with my development team that I found for them. And I'm so proud of it. And, it really doesn't cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's why I wanted to package up and make other brands realize you can enter this technology forward space. And what is really unique about the technology is we have audio erotic fiction, which is a really big space. You've got Quinn at the moment, you've got Dipsy, where they do these audio erotic stories. And if you turn on their Vibe, you can actually sync along with the audio erotic stories in the Vibes Only app. So we've programmed these toys to go through the peaks and valleys of these stories. And, it wasn't easy to create, but it is a really unique, novel feature. And I think like people are really enjoying that interactivity of a toy and their senses just being like fully fulfilled, like auditory and physically.
I love that. And your dream client, the people you've been working with in the past, are like people who have really successful podcasts or other content creators who, are looking to move into this space, or maybe even have that context with their audience already, but have no idea that they could really actually launch a brand off of this, expand their business model.
Totally. And I think like these lifestyle creators and these brands who already are connecting to their audience in the lifestyle space, like their audience want to see how you interpret pleasure in your space. Like I would love to see like a cool athletic brand also introducing one, which you can use for like muscle soreness, but you could also maybe use for pleasure. Or like, the brands that are doing like urine retract things, there's like Cheeky Bonsai and Eucora, like they're already around women's health and women's wellness, but like it would be a really cool extension of their brand, for example.
So fascinating. Is there a person or a company in the space that's really inspiring you, and why?
Yeah, I would say one that really stands out to me is Lioness, because there are really big brands out there like WeVibe that are doing Bluetooth controlled products, but Lioness are doing something really interesting, which is measuring female orgasm with their devices. It's app connected, and you can actually see sort of like muscle contractions and track the orgasm on an app. And I find that really fascinating and they developed this themselves, and it's a female founder. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like, this is the knowledge that women should be having. Some women don't want an audio erotic story with a vibe that sings along. Some women need to understand their own body better and how to like improve their pleasure. So I just think things like that are so cool and so novel, and like it's designed by a woman. Makes total sense to me. I think she's like a data scientist or something. It's just very cool.
That's so fascinating. We'll definitely link everything in the notes for anyone listening.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone getting started? And it's so funny because this question, I feel like it could apply to so many different people who are listening, right? One, I first would love to hear from a perspective of you as a bootstrapping founder. What advice do you give to anyone who might be listening and considering bootstrapping a company, so we can just have more female founded companies out there?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because for me, this is something I come up against with a lot of people who I think are very well-meaning, but there is this real thing in the industry of like, well, your business isn't credible unless you get funding, unless you scale, unless you 3x, 5x, 10x your growth. And that is just not me. And I feel like the odd person out because I don't come from that world. I come from a family where having a credit card was like frowned upon. We don't do like the credit system. And so for me, I just thought, well, I want to focus on what is profitable about my business. And if I'm not making a profit, then maybe that side of the business isn't working. And so instead of like recklessly spending on a million different ideas just to figure out what was working. I'm really slow and deliberate because it was my own money. And I was like, okay, I need to spend $200 on samples. Okay, I need to make sure I make that money back. So I was just documenting all what I was investing. And it was an investment. It's an investment to be buying these samples and paying for shipping from China and trying these things out. And I think like what I would say to people is it's okay to not want to 10x your growth and not take on VC money, because I'm still expanding my company and trying different elements. And I think when you bring investors in on board, even though that is like the right thing to do, it actually can really pigeonhole your growth. And then you have to specifically focus on one area. And if you're building a brand new business, and I've been in business for like a year and a half, not a long time, I still don't really know exactly my niche and my audience because I'm finding new opportunities from all over. And I would just say that's fine. That's okay. Like, you don't have to grow a multi-million-dollar company in your first 3 years. It's okay to just like focus on what's profitable and lean into those areas and just try different things.
I love that. I think that's such good advice. For anyone listening, what were like the tools and tactics you used for tracking? Were you just in Excel? Like, how did you actually get that? I mean, it can sound basic, but what did you do?
I did it like, really the most basic way possible. It's just a Google sheet. And I just want people to know, like, don't overthink it and don't make it bigger than it needs to be, because that's the way I did it. And everyone was telling me, oh, you need to be putting everything in QuickBooks, and sometimes as a founder, when you're just focusing on like sampling things up and testing things out, you don't want to learn a new software or be spending 10 hours trying to correct things that QuickBooks have misallocated. So I really just did like Google Sheets and I just tracked it. And I thought to myself, okay, I've invested like $10,000 of my own money, so I just need to make that back. So how can I sell one product? And that is just chipping away at my original investment. And I just track it in my Google sheet. And now I do have QuickBooks and it's all plugged in, especially for the ARIES side of the business. But like, I didn't want to overcomplicate it, because for me, if a hurdle feels too big, if it feels too official, I won't even get started. I'll just put it in the too hard basket and I'll never look at it again, and then I'll feel bad.
This is exactly why I wanted to ask that, because I feel like we sometimes can feel overwhelmed with our ideas of how, professionalized it needs to be before we actually
doing it the right way.
And so I was like, I want to check it, were you just doing this? Because I remember, we were working on Space Between, which was like a travel meditation kit. It was very similar. Everything was just tracked in an Excel, and we were working with suppliers overseas, and it was a perfect system for us. Our financials were there, and I really love your fiscal responsibility. I think that's the number one skill that a founder should have, is just like deep care and consideration and intel and knowledge about every dollar coming in and out, and like feeling like you can track that. And it can be as simple as a Google sheet, right? As long as you have awareness and you know how to use it and you feel comfortable with it. And then I do want to add, I know we talked about the founder side, but for somebody starting on their sexual health journey, and they think about maybe this is like a newer, taboo topic for them, just like your family with credit, and credit can be a good thing, right? Credit can give
totally.
And something can also be a bad thing. It could be this really cheap and skeezy, high interest things. And I feel like the pleasure space can be the same, right? It can be like cheap and skeezy.
Totally.
It can be really powerful and empowering and give you sort of personal leverage. So for somebody who may be coming in with that hesitation and resistance, what advice would you give to them getting started?
Yeah, I would say, like anything, I would say don't spend more than you're comfortable with, or something that makes you hesitate a little bit if you're just getting started, because like you don't want to spend like $190 on like the latest tech for all the bells and whistles when you don't even understand what works well for you. And like, I mean, a lot of women have tried these products in the past, but if you've never tried a product, I would start with a small, soft silicone product. And that can be anything from like, I mean, read the reviews on Amazon, but like a $20 silicone bullet vibrator all the way through to like maybe like a $90 silicone wand. But the brands don't really matter as long as you're buying something that has like great reviews. Definitely do your research. But I think it's just really important to just start with a vibe, something light, simple, not a ton of buttons. You don't even need app connected, and just see if it's something that your body actually responds to. Like, don't overcomplicate it. Don't overthink it. You don't need to have the product that has a huge marketing spend behind it. I would say like, yeah, definitely focusing on the reviews, but there are some really cute products out there. I mean, I'm going to say buy the Higher Love wand. It's great. And it is like, it's an $89 price point. It's not going to break the bank. And it's like a simple wand that also has dual stimulation. And then there's, if you find that doesn't actually work for you, vibration doesn't work for you, there is the other option of doing an air pulse vibe, which is just stimulation of the clitoris focused. And it's like a new technology or newer, which is really a unique sensation. And a lot of women who have trouble experiencing pleasure with just a vibrating product will really enjoy the air pulse products. And you can buy something, again, like under $50, just test it out. And then if you're like, actually, my body responds really well to this is working for me, then you should invest in something that is going to last the test of time and you're going to be able to keep it for like 2-3 years.
I love that. Are there any like taboo myths or things that you hear often that you would want to like demystify right now? If there's like top 3. I mean, I've been fascinated by some of the things you've told me too. This isn't a myth, but just even some of the legal constraints. Like I think you were saying in Texas, it's illegal to have more than
6 adult products, basically. So if you have like 6, they're called obscene devices. And if you have more than 6, I mean, I don't know if they're going to go into your home and look in your bedside drawer. I can't understand the context in which someone gets arrested for it, but it is illegal. And I just thought, like, how funny, because just to let you know, Texas is actually our largest selling state by a mile. I mean, I know there are a lot of people in Texas, but I actually think the taboo nature of this product sometimes can help it sell better, because there's like this feeling of novelty and excitement and a little bit of danger, because maybe I'll get arrested for leaving this sex toy store on the way home. It's highly unusual.
That's so funny.
But there is like a myth in this space that men can't be included. And honestly, like that could not be further from the truth. If you choose a small product, so therefore like non-intimidating to a male partner, and then you actually use it on your male partner as well, they can really enjoy the process and they can be included in it. These products are not just for women and just to be used on women. They're actually a great way to outsource some of the hard work on either gender.
That's so funny. I love it. It's funny, this conversation, there's so many parallels in, I think, even like the financial sphere, right? As we're talking about, it's like, do your own research, do what feels good to you, start small, invest more than you feel comfortable with in the beginning. Don't need all the most sophisticated, constructions of financial products. It can be a simple, like, ETF, whatever. And
who knew there were so many parallels?
Like, and men, that this isn't about excluding, and there's, so many different genders. Like, I think we're just moving so past that now. And knowing that this is, something about humanity and, health and well-being, and that applies to everyone, and it can include everyone. So I love this.
Agreed.
Thank you for everything you've shared, Sally. This has been such an illuminating conversation. Okay.
Here I was thinking I'd be talking about stocks.
No, I want to hear about the business you're building, which is so special.
That's great.
What else can we do to follow your journey as you personally build out both of these brands and as a founder and a visionary? And then how can we keep in touch with Higher Love?
Sure. So I think firstly, if you are curious about like launching your own pleasure products, and that's everything from like a lubricant that really works with a woman's pH and you have an existing brand, or if you're a creator and you want to design like a really cool pleasure product, hit me up. I'm at ariesbrands.co. You can find me on social media, on Instagram at Cotching, on TikTok. I really get into the weeds of what my work is like, which is Vibe Check Sally. And of course, I would always love your support with Higher Love, because Higher Love is my totally bootstrapped little baby, and I'm so proud of her. And I did have a Web3 designer design all the packaging. It's super beautiful. And so that's just Higher Love Vibes on all the socials.
I love it. Well, we'll definitely be keeping in touch and following along as you build and expand this now pleasure empire. I love it so much. Congratulations.
Just getting started.
Just getting started. Exactly. Well, thanks for what you're doing and how you're really creating some like normalization in the space of what this means and how many people can get involved. So appreciate you.
So nice to talk with you. And thanks for helping me normalize all of this to people who may not have been thinking about it before.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I'll talk to you soon.